like to open up the meeting for the Land Traffic Committee. Would all of us stand so we can repeat, say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then please remain standing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you right now, opening all minds and hearts, Father God, for the business that may come forth in this, in the city, over the land annexations. Father God, we just ask that everyone speak their mind and be free to ask the questions. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All righty, roll call.
Ms. Gillian?
Here.
Ms. Powell?
Here.
Mr. McIntosh?
Here.
All present.
All right, at this time, I want to open up discussions for the 4 ordinances, annexation certain territory to the city of Muncie, Indiana, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Muncie, Indiana. First on our agenda is the portions, number 1, portions Farmington Neighborhood Ordinance 29-24. Is there anyone here that wants to speak on this ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
That's you.
Committee, oh, you do? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman and members, my name is John Fallon. I live at 3905 West Heath Drive in Muncie 47304 in the Farmington subdivision, and I'm here this evening representing the Farmington Neighborhood Association through its ad hoc committee on annexation. And I'm joined here this evening by the other members of the committee who are here, including Robert Donati, David Hinkle, Kirsten Smith, Ronald Collins, and I might mention Ron Collins is a longstanding member of the board of directors of the Farmington Neighborhood Association, and I currently serve as secretary to the board of the association as well. I'd like to introduce, if he's here, Gary Wengler, also, who is the president of the Farmington Neighborhood Association, and we are joined here this evening by an untold number of residents that are affected by the annexation ordinance that you will be discussing tonight and beyond. The purpose of my remarks this evening is to register an objection to the proposed annexation of a portion of Farmington subdivision as portrayed in your ordinance 29-24, and would respectfully request that you consider either a retraction of that ordinance or a recommendation in your capacity as a committee that this not go forward from committee to the full council. And if it does go to the full council, that you would work to defeat that. That would be our request. Copies of my remarks from the last time I was here, the 6th of January, were given to the city clerk, and I believe those were shared with you.
Yes.
The same will be true with these comments this evening. There's a fair amount of background to this matter, a chronology, if you will, and I went over that the last time I was here. No need to do it again. You all know what happened and when it happened. But I would say this: if the goal of annexation, at least as it pertains to the Farmington Neighborhood Association, is to increase the city's population or expand its tax base, I would submit that there's other more effective ways to do that. One need not look any further than this community's Live Near Your Work project that was piloted a few years ago with Ball State University and IU Health, Ball Memorial Hospital. And it was a project to incentivize new employees from those organizations, our community's 2 largest employers, to live within the city limits of Muncie. And that project is ongoing in pilot form, but it could be expanded to include other major employers, in fact, all major employers in our community, as a way to increase population and expand the tax base. I would also mention that there are other substantive approaches to annexation that are included among best practices in municipal government operations. But I would also submit that takeovers of neighborhoods adjacent to municipalities are not among those best practices. And finally, even a cursory AI query on the subject of annexation, exploring both arguments for annexation and against annexation, is instructive. Interestingly, there are no arguments for forced annexation. The fact remains that a majority of the affected property owners in the Farmington subdivision are against this annexation. The count to date is 40 affected property owners out of 59 are against annexation. And this exceeds the 65% threshold to void the annexation proposition per Section 11.3 of the Indiana Code 36-4-3. We have a lot of viewpoints on annexation, and I shared those the last time I was here, and along with the questions that those raised. I'm not going to go through the questions tonight, but I would like to reiterate the views that my neighbors and I have, and there are 8 of those. First, the Farmington Neighborhood Association has had a great relationship with the County of Delaware. We've had paving projects in the last year, and as we understand it, there are paving projects scheduled for 2025 as well. If you go back in time, there were other improvements to the neighborhood made by the County of Delaware that affected challenges that we were having in our neighborhood. Suffice it to say, we have a good relationship, and we'd like it to stay that way. Secondly, we have concerns about police and fire response times without the engagement of additional personnel. Also, there are concerns about tax increases and the impact on assessed property values that comes with annexation. We also understand that not all affected property owners were notified as per provisions of the Indiana Code. There were at least 4 and possibly more residents in the neighborhood affected by the annexation who did not receive the certified mailings that others of us did and were not notified properly. Affected property owners see no benefit to annexation. In fact, we imagine some likely liabilities. Affected property owners already pay for it and enjoy an array of city services. Neither the Farmington Neighborhood Association nor any subgroup of affected property owners requested annexation. And finally, there was no formal or official communication about annexation between the City of Muncie and the Farmington Neighborhood Association, which is the established homeowners association, a separate 501c3 organization representing the folks that live in Farmington. Since I was here last, there were 2 additional developments that took place. One was last week, our committee attempted to communicate with the City of Muncie Street Department and asked some questions intended to contextualize what annexation would mean to us in relation to one of the most important things on our minds, and that has to do with the condition of the streets. And I'd like to share with you very simply the things we asked. First, how many miles of streets and roads is the City of Muncie responsible for maintaining at present? This is pre-annexation. A good factoid to know. Secondly, how many miles of streets and roads were repaired in 2024? At what cost? And in 2023? We were able to access the city's 2023 paving plan on the City of Muncie website, but there were virtually no details associated with this beyond the names of the streets. The 2024 paving plan was not posted on the website in any form, nor is there any mention of the 2025 paving plan. How many street road miles remain on the city's list for repair? What is the timing and estimated cost for those repairs? What is the city's paving plan for 2025, and what's the budget for those repairs? What do you, City Street Department, what do you know about the needs for street repairs in the Farmington annexation area? Is there a cost estimate for this? How do our repairs stack up against the city's current repair backlog? And what is the methodology for determining the relative priority of paving projects in the city and in our subdivision? What is the city's plan for maintaining their streets in the Farmington neighborhood if annexation is approved? Granted, this request for information was forwarded last week, but to date, there has been no response. A second development that took place, which was kind of news to us, was a well-written treatise by Brad King with contributions by Zane Bishop, folks that you know pretty well, I think, has come to light that makes a comprehensive and reasoned case against annexation in our community. While there is much in the literature, generally speaking, about the subject of annexation, this appears to be the only piece that is localized to the city of Muncie. So what are the next steps for the Farmington Neighborhood Association? Well, as mentioned previously, the majority of affected property owners are against annexation. The count is 40 against out of 59. And of course, that exceeds the threshold for stopping this annexation in its tracks per Indiana code. One thing we intend to do going forward is to engage council to guide us through the balance of this process, should it go further, with particular attention to how to certify the folks that are against this, how to certify that in a formal way that is sensible and in line with the Indiana code. So again, our respectful request is simple. We request that you retract or defeat Ordinance 2924 in the true spirit of neighborliness, in the true spirit of sensitivity to the wishes and interests and concerns of local residents, in the true spirit of saving time and financial resources for both the City of Muncie and the Farmington Neighborhood Association, and in the true spirit of respect for the participatory nature of local government operations. My committee members and neighbors and I stand ready to respond to questions that you might have this evening. And thank you very much.
Rob, thank you. You got anything? Anyone else?
Mr. Gibson, how would the Farmington Neighborhood Association go about certifying those responses?
There's a process set out in statute.
Okay.
I think that we'll get that
Okay.
from this attorney in a moment. We've got
Thank you.
Good evening, subcommittee. My name is Max Adams, attorney for the City of Muncie. My partner and I, Nick Kyle, have been assisting the mayor with this annexation process. We've been present at the outreach meetings. I was available by phone at the last council meeting. I apologize, I wasn't here in person, but Indianapolis didn't quite have its roads plowed at that time. So it's good to be here in person. It's great to see citizen participation tonight. It's very, I travel around the state and to a lot of communities, and it's always good to see communities with a robust citizen participation. So it's great to see everyone here tonight. I know we have a few annexations on the docket tonight. I'll limit my comments right now to Farmington in this ordinance. And I appreciate the committees sending us some questions ahead of time, so I'll try and weave those into my comments. I'll start by addressing some of the concerns expressed by Mr. Fallon, and I appreciate him being at the council meeting and then here tonight as well. police and fire response time. These were covered at our outreach meetings as well. The Farmington neighborhood is actually already covered by Muncie Fire. They have correct me if I'm wrong, but they have an agreement with the Township Fire Department that the Muncie Fire will cover this territory. So in terms of fire response time, they're still be covered by Muncie Fire before and after annexation. Police department response time, police have expressed to us that there should be no difference in police response time by annexing this territory. They feel they've expressed very confident that there won't be any difference in response time due to this annexation. In terms of taxes, the city engaged Cronin Associates, which was a municipal advisory firm based out of, I believe, Hamilton County. They did a study of the fiscal plan that has been in front of council, I believe, twice now. Fiscal plan says that everyone in the Farmington neighborhood are already what we call the property tax caps, meaning that under the Indiana Constitution, they cannot pay more property taxes. I'm sure you're all very aware of that for the room. That won't change post-annexation if the annexation were to go through. So in terms of property taxes, those will not change. Indiana American Water covers the area. They will still be covered. They will still cover the area post-annexation if it goes through. So those charges won't change. Sanitary District covers this area as well, so those will also be the same. Annexations also do not affect assessed values. It's handled at the county level. County assessor makes those calls. If property taxes increase next year, with or without the annexation, it certainly wouldn't be because the annexation would most likely be because assessed values go up. Assessed values have been going up drastically over the past several years, as everyone's aware, largely because of larger economic concerns. We'll see what happens at the State House. As state legislative sessions going on right now. There's several proposals to provide property tax relief, but if things, status quo remains, with or without annexation, assessed values, the annexation would not affect those assessed values. There's also concern expressed about the notice provided to the Farmington neighborhood. I sincerely apologize to anyone who didn't receive notice. State law has a very specific process for providing notice. Just to provide some background, the city is required to provide notice to landowners in a proposed annexation area. They have to provide notice of the outreach meetings, which we held. We held 6 of those meetings. We have to provide notice of the public hearing, which was held in January. And we also have to provide notice if council adopts the annexation ordinance. So, and in that third notice, which is the only notice that hasn't gone out at this point, we provide instructions on remonstrance rights. So, before I get to remonstrance rights, so the notice provisions, it just says that the city is required to provide notice to the contact information, the address is listed on the county property tax rolls. You can imagine that, some people may not live in their home, they may be a second property, maybe whatever's listed at the county level may be a different address than, where exactly the physical snail mail is going. So under state law, that is the process provided to the city. The city, I was involved in that process. I know that they followed that to a T. So I apologize if there were people who did not receive that notice. It's not perfect, but it is what's required under state law. And we, obviously doing everything we're required to do under state law. For the remonstrance rights, we are at the point right now, so public hearing has happened. There's, for the super voluntary annexations, which isn't the Farmington neighborhood, there's a lag time between the public hearing and when you can finally adopt. For the, I guess, quote unquote, regular annexations, in this case, the Farmington and the Heron Point annexations, state law requires there has to be at least 30 days, but no more than 60 days has to lapse between the public hearing and the final consideration of the ordinance. So 30 days, we can consider the Farmington and the Heron Point annexations in February, so they'll be eligible for adoption in March. If council adopts those ordinances, we enter into what we call the remonstrance period. It's a 90-day period where landowners in the area are able to object to the annexation if they so choose. That process, can be started by the landowners themselves. They're more than welcome to organize a petition and deliver that to the city clerk's office. There's also, state law requires us to have a petition ready at the city clerk's office to be signed by landowners if they so choose. So I believe we also have to provide, outside of normal business hours, different times for landowners to sign the petition. So instead of just normal, 8 to 4 o'clock, whatever the city's business hours are, we also have to provide. Don't quote me on this. I think it's about five-hour time slots outside of business hours to provide landowners an opportunity to sign that petition if they work it. So that's the process for remonstrance. We're not quite there. I can certainly appreciate wanting to register an objection at this time. We're not quite there yet in terms of process, but the state law outlines a pretty robust process for registering those objections if the annexation ordinance is adopted. Some of the other questions I think I covered that were forwarded to me ahead of time by the committee. Cost of the annexation in terms of the strict cost, it's just legal and financial fees for the city. Like I said, from a tax perspective, everyone in this area is already at their property tax cap, so that won't be a concern. Services, we talked about all city services once you're annexed are available to the area. Talked about police and fire. So I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to come up here if more questions are raised, but also happy to answer any questions.
My question right now is, you're saying that you have all of this proof, but is there any documentation, anything on paper that we can look at and get the actual numbers, then, what I'm saying, the
Sure.
cost?
So everything is outlined in that fiscal plan.
Find out, wasn't you, John?
Pardon me?
I think that's what you were trying to find out, wasn't it? That we want to know what all these costs in order to do this annexation versus not doing it.
Sure.
And so you're saying that you have this stuff, but this committee doesn't have it. And that's one of the main reasons we're doing this, is to get the information, allow people on both sides to speak, but we want documentation to show your work. That's all I'm asking.
I would be more than happy to forward the fiscal plan
Appreciate it.
prepared by Cronin Associates to the committee and to anyone else who would like it. It was included in the fiscal plan resolutions as well, so it should be public documents as well. So but more than happy to make those available.
Anybody else?
Mr. Adams, so you've explained the remonstrance process, and this is for everyone here too. I know when Mr. Fallon mentions retraction, is that even a possibility at this point in this process?
So retraction, not necessarily. I would. It's more, when we get to the March council meeting. We've asked that it be on the agenda and when it's up for a vote. If it passes, we enter the remonstrance period. If it doesn't pass, then it's kind of moot at that point.
And have you been involved in a court case for remonstrances before?
Not for an annexation remonstrance, no.
No, you have not. Has your firm? I mean, are you?
I'm
aware of
sure Nick Kyle's been involved in several of them around the state.
any idea of the cost of something like that or the time that something like that takes?
I couldn't provide that estimate, no.
All right. But the 40 out of 59 who are at this point at least against it, that does meet the 65% requirement?
So actually, let me back up and kind of talk about, I can't speak to, what the legal fees would be, but under Indiana state law for the remonstrance process, there's sort of two thresholds. Let's say council adopts the annexation ordinance and we enter into the remonstrance period. The two thresholds are 51% of landowners in the area can sign a petition. If we reach the end of the 90 days and it's between 51% and 65% have signed a petition objectifying, then it goes to a court and court reviews that. It's also 51% of landowners in the area landowners who own 51% of the AV in the area would also meet that criteria. So it's either number of landowners or based off assessed value. If you're in that 51 to 65%, it goes to court and they basically make a determination as to whether it's fair and reasonable. It's kind of it's not a fantastic metric, but it's what's outlined in state law. When you hit the 65% threshold, that immediately defeats the annexation. So in terms of, if you think about when it's effective, it would be, if you reach the end of the 90 days and you haven't reached the 51% mark, then it would be effective after that 90 days, plus some additional actions like notice, and you have to provide copies of the annexation to certain local and state offices. But for all intents and purposes, after that 90 days, it would be defeated and would ever take effect if you got to the 51% and the court strikes it down, or if you hit the 65% and it would be immediately defeated at that point.
The 65% would, then court is moot. I mean, you don't have to go.
It doesn't even go to the court at that point. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
I do. And just speaking to this, and just so we'll have that on record, what are the property taxes that the city will expect to collect from a Farmington neighborhood annually?
Bear with me for one moment here.
Sure. Just for Farmington, we'll go parcel
Sure.
to parcel.
Let's see, Heron Point, Westminster, Farmington. So the city can expect to collect, so this is based off of 23, pay 24. So it'd be probably a little bit more, in future years. But if it were in effect now, the difference would be for Muncie City could expect to collect roughly $80,750 in property taxes from the area.
And that is the total for what was collected in 2023, paid 24?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. And then there was a question about the streets, and was there an assessment done of the streets in Farmington, of the areas we will be annexing?
I'm not aware of a formal assessment of in terms of assessing the state of the roads in the Farmington area. I do know the rough estimate that we put in the fiscal plan was probably about $150,000 worth of repair. I think that was a very rough estimate. I would not, hold.
Do you know how much $150,000, how many linear miles that will pave or correct or repair?
So the total annexation area for all four areas is 2.2 miles. I judging based on the areas and maps of the areas, I would imagine most of that is in the Farmington area, so probably a little bit less than 2 miles.
Okay. And I'm sorry. No. To follow up, to go back, do you know how much that 2.2 miles would cost the city to repair? Would it be more than the
150 figure is kind of what we estimated for the
entire
2.2, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's a very rough estimate. There was no formal assessment. This was just Cronin Associates using their judgment and experience for that number.
If I may. The 150,000, so there is the city engineer did go out and did file a report, and I can read it.
Can we have a copy of that as well? Would you send that to all members of council, please?
Yep, and it's part of the fiscal plan.
Fine.
It's actually the amount that would, for regular maintenance of the miles, and this is the total annexation, so I don't have a number for the individual. So all four areas, the two that are voluntary, which one doesn't even have any streets, which is adjacent to their properties, and then Westminster, which is also voluntary. But it's on page 4 of so it's in the fiscal plan. I'll just get it here. Yep, page 4, and goes into page 5, which was part of what we passed out at all of the public meetings as well, and it's been given to the council twice.
Has been.
In the first fiscal plan that you approved in November, I think, and then also in the second fiscal plan that you approved in this last meeting. But we have 295 miles of roads in the city of Muncie. This will make it 297.2. So it's a small percentage of our total roads, but it is 2.2 miles for the whole thing. I don't know how much is just in this particular district, in the one we're talking about now in Farmington, and but I know that the amount under routine maintenance costs is $20,530 per year. That's what the fiscal plan says, and that's what the report from the city engineer said. The $150,000 was to do some immediate repairs. So that was just an estimate of some immediate repairs, and he mentions in his plan that in this particular area, actually he does have on here, it's 0.74 miles is all that it is in the Farmington area. He thought that they might want to work on 910 feet at a cost of approximately $150,000. So that was a one-time expense, but he anticipated that the regular maintenance for that distance of 0.74 miles was $20,000 and change. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I did know how many miles total, and I know that the total is 2.2. Farmington is 0.74 of that. 1.46 linear mile, or centerline miles, are part of the Heron Point.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, I know we're talking Farmington, but right now we're talking about all the miles right now. So that street that you're talking about building on to the city-owned, is that included in that? The street to be connected?
No, I
to
had
the
met,
street?
actually, I had met with the neighborhood about the 12 acres that Ball State gave us with the purpose of us developing homes. And I did meet with the neighborhood at a church on Moore, I don't know the name of the church, but a church on Moore Road. I did meet with them, and we went over that, and they did not want us to continue that road through, so we have no intention of continuing that road through.
Okay.
So we're not going to take Riggin on through to connect it to Riggin. So the entrance is into the 12 acres, which was what I was originally just trying to annex. The 12 acres would come in off Timothy.
Right, but is that a new road? Is that new road built into these?
No,
No.
there is no new road.
It wouldn't have to be,
No.
it can connect.
We're not going to connect Riggin behind those little condos back into the rest of Riggin.
But connecting Timothy, that's already there then?
Timothy's there, yep.
Okay. And it
we
already
would- we would
connects into
just do it
that.
right into that particular subdivision. But that would be if somebody buys the land and develops the property, which we have several people that are interested in that. But
So it's
at
not
this
in
point,
this,
we're not.
right, at this point?
That's not included in any of the price. That would be for a subdivision and for the housing that we hope to do, and Ball State hopes for us to do. But we're not continuing, because the neighborhood did not want that. Those who attended that
Right.
meeting that I attended
Right.
at the church on that particular evening, they did not want it to be a through street, and I agreed. So we don't intend to do that.
I noticed that street lighting, it said there will be no additional cost for the city for maintaining streetlights. So do you have the intention of adding streetlights since they don't have any?
We did not.
Is that a city service or is that,
We did not.
okay.
We did not. And I think in Heron Point, I think that it's an all underground. We don't intend to do that there
Okay.
either. And that's also stated in the fiscal plan.
Yeah, I'm reading, yeah.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Something
reading
for
it
the
from-
record.
From verbatim.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to mention, being part of the city limits, this may be small to some people, but it could be huge to somebody, especially if they have a fire. But there is an agreement that anybody within the city limits, so any person within the city limits, we have an agreement with Indiana American Water that they will put in extra fire hydrants to make sure that everyone is within 500 feet of a fire hydrant. The county does not have that deal. and that arrangement with Indiana American Water. But that is, so I'm certain that there will be another fire plug put in at Indiana American Water's expense. But that's part of the deal that they have with us as the city of Muncie.
Is that deal listed within the documentation, or can you?
No, I think it just said that we're not paying anything to do that work because it's something that they do for anybody in the city limits. So as we continue to add, they add additional fire plugs.
Anyone else?
Why don't you come on? Come on up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wait, it can be heard.
My name's David Henkel, and I live on Heath Drive. I was at that meeting that he was talking about, and yeah, they talked about not extending Riggin, but if they develop that 12 acres and put a lot of apartments or houses back through there, we have little kids and families that live on Timothy. You're going to have all this traffic winding through there. That just doesn't seem right. So that's one thing. Another question I have is, while the property tax rates are capped, what about other fees that can be assessed to the property owners? You know, I don't know, capital expenditures or bond cost or stuff like that. Are there other costs that can come in and be assessed to the property owners?
I wasn't trying to cut you off, Mayor. I just knew he had
No,
a
that's
question
right.
for you
No,
at that
and
point.
that's good. And we're here to answer these questions. So, no, there would be no special assessments. And if there were, it would have to go through the council. That's not likely to happen. And we've not asked for any special assessments, nor do we intend to. That's not our goal. So it would just be the property taxes, which are maxed out at 1% if you are living in your particular home.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to speed this up.
that's all right.
I'm Gary Wankler. I live on Heath Drive, and I'm president of the Homeowners Association. A question for the mayor or somebody, but on page 6 of what we did receive, on the capital improvements, it talks about spending $150,000 for a connector. And I guess I wondered, or some of us thought that that was going to be a connector to connect the new land donated by Ball State to Everett Road, so that we didn't have all the construction traffic. I guess as president, I represent the other 280 homeowners in Farmington, and the people on the north side of Riggin are going to be impacted a lot by the construction traffic and the other. So our hope was that there would be a connector off of Everett to keep the additional traffic from the new addition out of Farmington, and it would also keep it out of any other addition that they would connect that through. But since that construction could go on for several years, people are going to have to tolerate the construction trucks and so forth tearing up our streets from the heavy weight. So that's really a concern for us in terms of that. The other thing that I guess we can't be assured of, but if the state ever gets short on budget and decides to raise the property tax cap, then by being annexed, we're going from a tax rate of 370 something to 9 something, and that would have a huge impact on us. And so not knowing the state of the state in the future, that could be a big deal. So that is another reason that we think staying where we are is a good thing. I don't know if you have any questions for me, but
Mayor wants to answer your question.
sure. Okay, okay.
So,
This was what I was talking about, that.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That 150,000, I told Adam based on what the neighborhood had told me, and Adam is our city engineer. So he had budgeted 150,000 to connect that road from Riggin all the way into up to Timothy to where the 12 acres are.
Oh, so it won't go from
Well,
Everett?
well, hold on a second.
Okay.
But I told him that I was told by most of the people at that meeting that, and at many of the public meetings that we held on this, that is not what, they didn't want a lot of through traffic. And so we're not planning on doing that. He has that in the budget. So what he intended to do, after I told him they don't want that done, which is what I told you, we want to do things the way you guys want it done as best we can. He was planning on doing he mentioned 3 courts in there, and he thought that we might take that 150,000 and take care of those courts. Oren Court and some of the others that were in there that needed repair, if the county doesn't do this before the annexation's done. So if the county doesn't do that particular road work, since we had that kind of budgeted, and it's in our budget, that's what he wanted to do. So that's what we intended to do. We were going to take it from here into here. We have several developers that are interested in building some homes that are similar to the neighborhood. And these are, for Muncie, these are higher end homes. So, and all of them have an entrance off of Everett. So the construction cap, this is one that's 78 acres. We have several different proposals. We're just waiting to see if it gets annexed or not. But all of them have an entrance off of Everett. So you'll find that that's where the construction traffic will go, because this is the 12 acres. Just to give you an idea. This is just one proposal.
Everett?
And I shared this with councilperson, with Sarah earlier tonight.
This Everett?
That's Everett, yes.
Okay, so we wouldn't be coming in from Timothy?
No, no, that is not we don't feel that's an effective way. We don't want a bunch of trucks going through there. That's not what we want either.
Okay,
Yep. Yep.
okay.
So but this is not definite. This is what they have proposed. We've got others that want to propose. It's some time away, but all of them have an entrance off of Everett. But I just wanted to share with you, we're not doing that connector road because the neighborhood didn't, the ones that were at the meeting I went to were not in favor of that. So we tried to comply with that, and so we pulled it, but the money was already set aside. So I said, well, let's do Oren Court, because every single public meeting, people talked about Oren Court. And I went up there and looked at it, and Adam did as well. But anyway, that's what that 150 is that Nora mentioned. And it is in the plan.
So that would go for Oren and the other roads, or that's going to go?
Has nothing to do with the subdivision. The subdivision doesn't exist at this point.
Right.
It's 12 acres, and we're trying to work out a number of other things to make it to be slightly larger than that, and have an entrance off of Everett Road. Our 12 acres doesn't have an entrance off of Everett Road, so we're working with the parties to make that happen.
Okay,
But that's not a guarantee, but I did have that rendering so that you could see that was proposed to us by someone else who wants to be considered to do that work.
okay. Another question then.
Sure, go ahead.
I'd asked you before by email, when we talked about the schools
Mm-hmm.
and the budget, on the back page where it shows the reduction
Yes.
in what goes to the city schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand you as mayor have given extra money to the schools,
I have
but
considerable,
if,
yeah.
if when you're not mayor, if somebody stops that, are we then now hurting the Muncie City Schools because the new proposal takes that money away from the Muncie City Schools and puts it other places.
No, and I thought I had done my best to explain that to you in the email, but I talked with previous superintendent, Dr. Kay, and also with Mr. Reynolds. And they're very much in favor of this. They understand that it's a slight drop this time, but they also know that I'm very committed to, as is President Mearns, coming up with ways and opportunities for people to move here that work for Ball State and other businesses here in our community. And in order to do that, we have to have housing. And so we have Muncie Community Schools knows that I have been very supportive of them financially every year in the six-figure range. And that has continued now for all my term.
No, I understand
No, I understand that. So, and they saw what we've done at Storer Estates, because the city built that subdivision. There are 4 houses under construction there now. They know that each one of those 4 houses at Storer Estates and the other 30 that will be available are all potential property tax revenues for the schools, because they get their money before we get our money, for the schools. So they appreciate that, and they understand that commitment from me. They also understand that I make things happen on those, because I told them from the beginning, we're going to do things to increase your revenues. So building a subdivision, attempting to build another one in partnership with another entity, which is what we're trying to do with the 12 acres and some additional acreage. Those are all things that Muncie Schools is very fine. And you could ask Dr. Reynolds, because we've had this conversation, and Dr. Kay, they are thrilled with the opportunity, because they know that down the road, when they need the money the most down the road, they will have more students, they'll have more property taxes if that becomes a reality, not less. It will not be less, and they understand that. So I did have that conversation with them in advance, and they were very supportive. I explained to them your loss. I went over those losses with them, and they're very excited about that. About the opportunity. They know it's a 1-year short-term loss, but they know that things will happen and it will be a positive. The other thing that we've done on the economic development side, not once have we borrowed for an economic development project in Muncie through the MRC. And so what that means, and never have we put anything extra into a TIF district. When you create a TIF district, that pulls revenues from the school system. We have never done it. I don't intend to do it. I committed to them that unless we absolutely had to do it, we would never do it that way, and we haven't in 5 years. What that means is our property tax revenues are going up as we've created all these in the houses inside the Muncie Community Schools District, inside the city limits. Many of those are now already assessed, and we're getting tax revenue on, and that will continue. They understand that, so they know from my results that we've had in the 5 years. They're very confident that I will follow through and will make some positive things happen for the schools. So, and I'm.
as I expressed to
No,
you.
I know. So
I'm not you. I'm concerned.
I
about.
know. Well, I can't guarantee future mayors.
I know that.
I can't guarantee. I can't guarantee that. But for at least 3 more years, I'm here, but that's my commitment to the schools, and they understand it and they believe in it wholeheartedly, and they were 100% fine with accepting a lesser amount because they know that it's not a lesser amount in the long term.
Okay,
So, so I did have that conversation with them.
all right.
Did you have any other
Thank you.
questions?
We got any other questions?
Yep, come on up.
Hi, Kirsten Smith, 4101 West Oren Court in Farmington. I have a question because it is my understanding, and I could clearly be wrong, we are already paying taxes to the city schools. Nothing is going to change except for our $80,000 a year of taxes are going to go to the city. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So I guess I don't see why. Like, that's my point, is like, we're happy where we are.
You don't see why
Yeah,
you should.
yeah, and we have a good relationship with the county. Hopefully, we're going to get our road fixed this year, so I think that's why most of us are feeling that there's no advantage to us.
And so just-
And there's no great advantage to the city, honestly, except for the fact of the $80,000 a year of property tax revenue.
Thank you.
Hmm?
So you doing something?
No, she answered.
Do we need to let him?
I just say anyone else. Only if he wants to. It looks
just
like he
gonna
wants
let
to.
Good evening,
I'll get over
councilpersons and residents here. I just wanted to come up really quick and speak just briefly. Mr. Fallon brought up a concern with staffing for his public safety by adding the annexations. And I did just want to say that we currently, as the city of Muncie, I'm the chief of the Muncie Fire Department, we provide fire and EMS protection to your neighborhood as it is now. So the annexation there doesn't change anything, honestly, on our end from the fire department. Additional revenues could help us with staffing in the future. You spoke staffing. We're always saying, we're never going to say, hey, we won't take some extra people. You know, if the whole annexation goes through and the council and the mayor were on board, one of the things we would like to see first is the addition of an ambulance in Station 7 on Wheeling, which would have a direct effect on EMS responses to your neighborhood, as well as the two councilors up here's districts as well, in the whole north and northwest side of the city. So that is something we would like to see. Now, that's something to have to be hashed out in all reality with our councilors and with the mayor to be able to allow that through contracts. But you're already receiving fire protection from the city of Muncie. So we have no plans on changing that. I'm sure the mayor doesn't have any plans on changing that. We have a great relationship with Kay Walker, the Center Township trustee, and I'm sure she doesn't have any plans on changing that. My only caution is I was here in 2000 when one election took your fire protection away from you from the city of Muncie. So one election, that being a Center Township trustee or even a mayor that wanted to seek a change, those agreements are through them. That's the only thing I can offer to you as residents of Farmington. Those of you that lived there in 2000, you know what happened there. There was a change with the fire protection. So that's the only thing from the fire department that I can tell you. We would love to have an extra ambulance, and additional revenues can be used to help offset those costs with us, which could be very beneficial to your neighborhood. But other than that, that's what I just want to say. We already provide those services, and we don't have any plans on changing that.
Chief Burford,
Yes.
would this particular annexation give you any income from that? I mean, would this one make a difference for you on that? I mean, like you said, you're already providing, you've already got the.
As far as like needing staffing changes or
No,
anything?
to help you to get that ambulance in 7.
Well,
This Farmington,
any-
this Farmington annexation, would that,
Any
any
additional
difference for you?
revenue that is earmarked for the fire department could. So depending on what is done with the additional tax revenues that come into the city, how those are distributed, and there again, that's something that would have to be discussed with council as well as the administration. So I would, there is potential, but how we deal with that, I mean, that's something that would have to be dealt with after this went through and we could.
Chief, and I'm going to touch on what we kind of touched on in the email. In order to fully staff Medic 7, how many additional employees would that require?
And-
Or how many overtime minimum manning shifts would that require?
Well, right now, we're staffing today, and most of the days so far this year, we've staffed an ambulance at Station 7 without any changes to our staffing right now. So where it's going to come into play would be when we get into heavy vacations, personal days, illnesses, things like that, that would have an effect on what our allowable staffing is. Now, when you get into the summer months, it would take a little bit, but it's not that we would have to fund, say, 2 positions daily for the whole year. We would not have to do that. We could actually, through some changes in overtime, in our minimum staffing, we could. But to be able to tell you exactly what that number is, there's too many unforeseens to do that. So that's,
Do you think the additional overtime minimum manning, given the daily rate or introduction, hiring new staff, do you think that would cost more than $80,000 for a year?
then 80? I honestly can't answer that because I don't know where we're going to lie. I believe that we would be very close in what we're looking at moving forward and the differences to staff that based on what we're doing now. But like I said, until we get into there and we see, if we have staff leave, that could cost us some overtime, but we could recoup some of that in payroll, as those people left. So it's that moving piece. It's just how you decide to staff that position. And that's something that would have to be looked at based on, revenues and what we can do. Like I said, right now, this time of year, and in the fall, that ambulance will be in service a lot as within our staffing model now. So it's just really when we get into the higher vacations, personal days, people with military leave, things like that,
Can you give us, can you provide council with figures from last year, just to give a ballpark figure?
We could, but we were understaffed by 22
True.
people.
Okay.
So, our overtime last year because of that was totally different. Now, we won't be in a position like that again, and we're working very diligently to make sure that doesn't happen, and it shouldn't have happened when it did. But we were running 22. Our daily staffing stayed the same. We kept our staffing up, but we did that through overtime as well. So the difference, even if we had added that Medic 7 last year, the difference in the overtime would have been very minimal compared to what the overtime was as a whole by increasing that daily staffing.
Can you take out the, I'm sorry, Sarah. No, that's fine. Can you take out the salary or the cost of salary and just give a person by person, or will that still be affected by running short?
It's
Okay.
yeah, there's honestly, until we could actually get in there and say, we're going to do this, and
Yes.
then look at everybody's vacations, personal days that they drew for the year, and we may be able to get a little closer, but we're going to be very close at that, I believe, to add that in. It's not, there again, we're looking at a lot of times one person. Even the days that we've not been able to run that ambulance this year, we've been within one person in our staffing on those days, even where we're sitting in our current staffing model.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is he going to talk with him? Okay, let's move on. I guess he ain't.
I was just curious if Heron Point gets annexed and what that's going to do to your demand with the ambulance service and so forth, because you're going to add a whole new addition that you're going to have to service also.
Correct.
Are
And
you
the-
going to have to, is that going to affect us in terms of less response if you
The
have to
number of
cover-
EMS calls to Heron Point last year was less than one a month. So,
Okay.
Excuse me for a second. Y'all are skipping over
yeah, we're skipping.
into the Heron Point. Thank you. I know Mayor touched on it also. Since we already been on that subject, you want to go ahead, or we got to,
Whatever you want to do, however you want to do it.
nobody
Whatever you
right
want to
there?
do, either way.
Moving on to the city-owned parcel near Farmington neighborhood, ordinance 31-24. Anyone got any questions on them?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Ridenhour here. What started all of this was the 12 acres that Ball State gave us, and they said, we'll give this to you as long as you do a subdivision. That's what they wanted. And so that's what started all of this. We did have some people reach out and say, what are you doing, and asked to be annexed. They're clearly must be part of the 19 of the 15, and that's okay. That's okay. But all I wanted to annex in the beginning was the 12 acres, and that is for a potential subdivision that we're working on, and just trying to get some additional high-quality housing inside the city of Muncie to provide people opportunities. I know when I worked at the bank, we had, when I was at Mutual before being mayor, we had we were working, one of my coworkers did a lot of work for IU Health with the hospitals and part of the recruitment, and there was a surgeon wanting to move to town and could not find housing and ended up going to Hamilton County. That's the type of thing that this acreage in and around, and this 12 acres, that's what this is to help us solve, is more opportunities so that people will move here. That surgeon decided, yes, we'll move to Muncie. They couldn't find a house of the size and area that they wanted. So that's what we were trying to do. That's what we are going to do with the 12 acres. And but that's what started this whole process. So there are no houses there. We made there were some properties inside the city limits in some other areas along the east end that had built We did resurvey it at their expense. We had them pay for it, but we cut off some of that so that they didn't have to give up any of their outsheds. Some of the outbuildings had been put on what was now city property. We worked with them. We're very accommodating. We work with our residents. But that's what happened. So we got those 12 acres from Ball State. It is in county. To the east is city limits. To the south is city limits, and so that's what started all of this. But that's what those 12 acres are. It's just land.
So, Mr. Mayor, is the plan to sell this property to a developer and
Ye-
then they will develop it? And so Muncie is basically getting in the real estate game?
Yeah, with a zero-cost property, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're.
And that's fine.
Yeah, Ball State very much appreciated, and I explained this at all 6 of the public meetings. Ball State was very excited and liked the fact that we followed through and took care of what was Store Elementary School at one time, and turned that into a subdivision and added a park. And they said, if you will do something along those lines, we'd love to have more opportunities for our new employees coming into town to have opportunities to live in our community.
Right.
And I said, I will absolutely do that.
And Mayor, just have any of those lots in Store Estates been sold yet that you know of? I know the developer has it, but do you know if they've sold any lots? I don't know
If
they
they've
give you
sold any
update,
lots,
but-
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. And as I shared with you, I'll share it in this setting. I know that D.R. Horton, the builder, is so excited with the response that they have already received. And if you go on Zillow or you go on Realtor.com, you can see the 4 houses that they're building. They've been so excited about the response and their market studies, which kind of mirror what you showed in your study from years ago with the previous administration. There is a pent-up demand. They're seeing that, and they're ready to, and they're actually looking for other opportunities as well. In addition to Store, I think they're thinking it's going to be filled up pretty quickly. But I don't know. That is their, they're buying the lots, and we're not a part of anything anymore on Store Estates. Other than the park, we still take care of the park.
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Anyone else?
thank you.
Hearing none? Westminster?
Sure.
We need nothing on that, do we?
Let's go back.
Uh-uh.
Go back up there.
Go back to it. Okay.
Which one are you going to?
Because I noticed the gentleman out there that's in the Point neighborhood, Heron Point neighborhood. We're gonna jump right on there real quick, because I know it kind of got overlapped there a little bit. But anyone here to speak on the portions of Heron Point neighborhood ordinance 30-24? No one? I thought.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Brian Marsh, and live at 5108 Shoreline Terrace in Heron Point. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association, and at Mr. McIntosh's phone call about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, invited us to come in. Unfortunately, I thought it was going to be more of a roundtable type discussion with the parties, so I shared the same with my neighbors and the folks that we invited. We're not clearly as organized as the other parties that are subject to annexation from a legal side or anything, but some of the communications that you and I had on the phone, or that and that I've had with a few of the neighbors, we haven't done a formal vote. Frankly, I think a number of us thought it was a de facto completed
Just a done deal.
done deal. After hearing the concerns that have been shared already in this meeting, and that we do have an opportunity to be out of it if the neighbors so desire. At the moment, I honestly don't know. We don't have a formal vote of any kind at this point from our neighborhood that I could share with you with certainty, other than the comments that I've heard of wanting to and as I spoke with you, Mr. McIntosh, was that I do apologize to you, to my neighbors, to our association, is that we've had a number of personal family matters that have shocked my personal life in the past 6-7 months that have made my focus on this particular topic and way out here in the backyard. So the fact that we didn't have anybody here at prior meetings to the level that folks over here in Farmington obviously have had, and the organization that you've rallied behind this, I hope that that's not an impact upon us, that we're not concerned, but their leader has not been fearlessly properly shared with maybe the concerns that have been out there. Some of the concerns that I have heard are wanting to understand and likely I realize, Mr. Mayor, that this was likely discussed at the public meetings prior to this, was the understanding the genesis of why our neighborhood was desired. Obviously, people think that it's the value of the property and what will we gain from it. As the fire chief spoke about, I believe that there's mutual aid, if that's the proper term, that comes out of Gaston and Muncie, and I think even Yorktown would come out of that, and Hamilton Township. We on a Venn diagram probably are positioned in a rather safe place to be protected by fire and ambulance. We do already receive sanitation and water, most of the utilities and the functions that the city that one would expect from the city. Folks did have a concern of from I believe that one of our neighbors that also handles our insurance policy for the neighborhood has had discussions with the mayor, and it would impact us differently to have a full-time fire station that would be here as opposed to where Gaston is not a full-time operation, so we'd be classed a little bit differently. So I guess just an affirmation of that, and as the folks here mentioned, if our neighborhood is annexed and brought in, of how will additional personnel be required, additional equipment. We just went through up in Gaston a concern that they had with fire protection territory just a few months ago, and that fell apart at the meeting that several people came to. So there's concern about where we would reside, and certainly would like the fire department here to be fully equipped, properly equipped, to protect us and other citizens around us. Same as fire, streets are always a concern with any neighborhood. It would be echoed in our neighborhood as well. Our neighborhood's approximately 20 years old, and there are certainly signs of necessary maintenance to be done. Some of our members have students that attend Westdale community schools and are unsure of what happens in an annexation if their kids no longer go there, if the bus no longer comes in because it's now part of the city. So those are things that, if you could address them. Taxes have been discussed, water's been discussed via the conversation that we've sat in here. I'm sure that other neighbors of ours will want to come up and express more, but my hope at this point is that our concern will be heard, that I don't necessarily want to come up here and say that we're formally against it, or that we're formally for annexation. But I would be disingenuous to Councilman McIntosh that I did state that we receive a lot of services from the city, and but I also don't want it to impact. I also further don't want it to impact the Westdale Community Schools or the Gaston Fire Department of how they're already in a crippled situation. We're in a damned if we do, damned if we don't by harming them. So those would be some concerns that I have about this process, and hopefully through what I've learned here, that we have some ability to take action should we find that it's not in our neighbor's best interest. That I think that the group of us, the 10 or so neighbors here tonight, will make it clear to me that we need to take further action here. So I hope, again, in our absence from prior meetings is not out of disinterest, it's out of life getting in the way.
Appreciate you, Mr. Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
And I'm going to have the chief come up and talk about fire, but Mr. Marsh, thank you for your questions. Annexations don't have anything to do with school districts, so none of that will change. In fact, we have about 3,200 people that live in the city limits of Muncie, but are inside the Yorktown School District. All of that property, because we own, the city has Meyer, all that stuff is in the city limits, and everything north of the railroad tracks between Morrison and Nebo, that's all Yorktown schools, but they're in the Muncie city limits. So feel comfortable, and please tell the other residents that it has no impact at all on the school districts, at the students going to particular schools. And Indiana is also a state that allows you to go to other schools anyway. But that I understand that concern, definitely. I wanted to just say you have a slightly different situation than the Farmington. Farmington is covered because of the agreement that I renewed as mayor. And I think Chief makes a good point that can always change, whether it's certainly, I think Kay Walker is very much in favor of keeping that, and I'm very much in favor of keeping that, but you never know with future mayors. But your situation is very different in that you're absolutely correct. There is a financial benefit to you that is not possible, not able to get with the Farmington, because going to a full-time fire department would lower, with most insurance companies, I won't say all, but the agents I've talked to, some in your neighborhood, by the way, have said that the premiums would probably, should drop. But I can't guarantee that. That could be an extra benefit. Just could be an extra benefit. Part of your neighborhood of Heron Point is already in the city limits, so it was a pretty easy run for us to go to the other part. And the reason it occurred is, again, I think it happened because of what was happening with the Gaston Fire Department. There were several people that reached out and said, some friends of mine, some others who I didn't know until the conversations, but they were all interested in seeing how can we become part of the city. And so we went ahead and decided to go ahead, and I actually spent a day out there and knocked on several doors to kind of gauge a reaction before we spent the time and the effort to move this forward. Everybody that I was able to talk to on that particular day, I didn't catch a lot of people home on a Saturday afternoon, but you do the best you can. But it seemed positive, and I knew several other people in there who were interested in being annexed, and I think primarily for fire and police protection. Not that those are not good services, it's just we're there 24 hours. Right. And the response times are very strong. And that extra protection is a good thing. So, and I wanted to address one other thing that, is it okay if I address a question from the first one? But it impacts all of them. It has to do with streets. It was asked, I don't know how the city handles streets. We don't, we operate strictly on ratings. So an independent source comes in every 2 years and rates the city streets, and we pave based on those ratings. So that's how we pick and choose. So that's how we do it. So if the streets are average, they're probably not going to get worked on. If they're below average, if they're poor, they're on that list and they would be done. And I have a whole list of what was done in 24, and I know a number of streets being done in 25, but we'll go ahead and move forward and let Chief come up if you want to talk about fire protection. But thank you.
Same thing, right?
Once again, I feel like I should be talking this way, but you guys are up here, so I apologize. But obviously, you don't enjoy all the services the city of Muncie has that our friends in Farmington do. When the territory discussions began and everything was going through, I don't know how involved you guys hear from the
Chief,
words.
we can't hear you up here.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure if I was supposed to be talking to you or them. But during the talks of the fire territory up in Gaston, I started receiving calls from people in the area, and not just in the Heron Point neighborhood, but people and they wanted to know how they could get fire protection from the city of Muncie in their area. You know, and I instructed them, I said, well, it's not as simple as you just asking for fire protection within the city of Muncie from our department. So I just instructed them, I said, hey, you know, some of you areas, it could make sense. We already respond to the front portion of Heron Point, and it falls well within all the NFPA required response times to that area. So that neighborhood made sense. Some of the other places, I said, look, it doesn't make sense for us to send fire trucks from the city of Muncie to those other areas. You know, you'll have to talk with your township trustees and work on some things there. So we look back, there was 10 calls to that neighborhood, 10 emergency calls to the Heron Point neighborhood in 2023. So to say that when we respond to 17,981 calls last year. 10 calls is, I mean, honestly, we don't feel that. I hate to state, you know, that way, but we don't. We're efficient in what we do. We operate very well. So, but we would send to the Heron Point neighborhood the exact complement of trucks that we send to the front area of Heron Point, which would be 2 engines, an aerial company, a heavy rescue company, and then on working fire alarms, you would get a battalion chief as well. Yes.
Chief, that front part, are you talking about the Eagle Branch Village? Is
Yes.
that part of, okay.
Yes, which we have responded to there since when that was built. They requested annexation into the city there for the same reasons that we've talked about here. So, you know, we will commit to responding the same way. It makes it, we respond to everyone that's in our response territory with the same complement of equipment. Now, after annexation, they would also receive EMS services from the city of Muncie. So as we talk about even the changes, the benefits that Farmington can make to our program, you know, depending on revenues from the city and how those are distributed to the city of Muncie, that also helps us with that, with the, you know, some changes in staffing. You know, paramount for us, the first thing we'd like to see is that ambulance at Station 7, which once again would benefit everybody in this room greatly. So how that stuff is distributed there as well. But yes, you know, our commitment would be to provide the same fire protection to the neighborhood of Heron Point as we do to the neighborhood at the front entrance to that area. Okay?
Thank you.
I have a smattering of questions that have been sent from different people. So, sure.
Real quick.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
You went, I was just walking up. I didn't know if you were going on.
No, go ahead. I was
can
gonna
wait.
ask-
I can wait if you're going on. I'm sorry.
Okay. I was going, if you're going to address what the chief is addressing, please go right ahead.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to follow it up and give another little angle. Hi, guys. My name is Jason Chafin. I'm the union president for Muncie Fire, and I'm a battalion chief for Muncie Fire. My battalion's working today. And my wife is on the advisory board for the Harrison Township trustee's office. So she was obviously involved with the fire territory stuff, you know, pretty heavily. And, you know, when we live in, obviously, Harrison Township, myself, you know, so.
Jason.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So when we were involved with that process, my family was, I do believe not only will you guys in Heron Point receive, just like the fire chief said, much better fire coverage because we'll send that full complement to that area, but it will help. You know, the what you said was the strained resource, the strained department that at Gaston. I mean, the least they have to, the farther out they don't have to go, the better it'll be for the citizens of Gaston and the areas that they do have to go to, because they are stretched to the, so it will help them as well. And we do have mutual aid agreements, but for the most part, we don't get called to your neighborhood, by Gaston so I do believe it will help everybody. Gaston will win because they'll have less coverage area and they can focus on what they have. And that was, obviously, my wife was, I can't speak for her, but she was part of that territory discussion. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead. Trying to get back.
Mayor, how much property taxes are currently collected from the Harrington Point parcel? Just that parcel, and it might be listed in here.
It is.
Okay.
It's in
I don't know
there.
if it's combined, because there were some combination totals as far as a total assessed value. Go ahead, I'm sorry, sir.
Yep, the total taxes in the Heron Point area is around $300,000.
Okay. And then,
And if annexed, the city of Muncie would generate $149,970.
that would be an additional 149?
Well, no, the $300,000 that the residents of Heron Point pay will not change. It's just how that's distributed gets changed.
So.
So we start taking a share of that as we provide those services.
So the net property taxes that we will receive after this annexation for the city is $149,000?
Yes,
Okay, so $149,000.
Yes.
Is what we will receive. Questions that I've received. How will this affect Westdale? We've kind of touched on that. Will it affect the funding for Westdale?
Absolutely. It affects all of the current entities. It affects the sanitary district. And all of those entities.
Will the funding for Westdale be reduced?
Yes, every single entity that currently receives taxes will be reduced. What most of them have understood is that our objective is to help growth.
Correct.
And so there will be other things, and we'll get to another piece coming up in the final annexation piece. But there's some opportunities for us to help grow the tax revenues in those areas, and that's what our purpose is.
Will those students, because I know that they won't have to change schools, but
Correct.
will they then be considered Muncie Community students who are transferring to Westdale?
No.
These are just questions
No,
that I've gotten.
absolutely. No, they will still be Westdale students.
Okay.
They are welcome to go to Muncie Community Schools, however.
And then one more that I
Yeah,
would.
go ahead.
There are several bodies of water that are within that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Are those public, and will the city be required to provide insurance for those? And if so, what will that cost be?
You mean the pond areas
Yeah,
inside?
Again, questions I've received. So yes, the pond areas, are they public then? And would we take on ownership of those? And would we be required to insure them?
I may defer to Mr. Marsh. I believe those are probably part of the association, but I don't know.
They are listed as part of the association.
Okay, so that's,
They were created when Jim Krause, the developer of our neighborhood that's since passed a few years ago, they were created, from my understanding, for the benefit of Muncie Sanitary District to
Okay.
have an outflow from, at the time, it was Airway and Marsh Supermarkets that had a store, and they were looking for an area to come, for a developer to come in and create, to take the water and deposit it when large rainfalls came, and then push it out. So, if you don't mind, I mean, the sanitary district all of a sudden came in and enlightened us about a year ago, and started making all these demands about, you've got to do this or that. They didn't know about us for 20 years. And then we're just like, and then all of a sudden went silent. So we It's insured on our policy because it is, they're considered as outlots. We pay, we're taxed but not charged, and they're non-commercial properties that,
Thank you.
That you pay insurance on. Okay.
And just questions I've.
Yep, that's good.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing none on the other. Move on to Westminster. All righty. Westminster Village, ordinance 32-24. Uh-oh.
Guess what?
You good, man?
So, Mayor Ridenhour again. Westminster requested this. Their board voted unanimously for a super voluntary annexation. And so we're following the process to make that occur. But they are very much in favor of it and have asked for it.
And I understand that they are non-for-profit.
They are a non-for-profit, yes. They're very limited tax revenues. I think it was less than $1,000 because of their nonprofit status.
Yeah. And exactly for the record, which buildings are included in this and what land?
All of their properties were included. There's the one that has their main facility. There's a medical facility in the front that's included. There's some additional acreage to the southwest that's included, a large parcel there. And we already go to the villas. The villas are inside the city limits, so just across Bennett that's the part that's annexed. So it's adjacent to city limits.
This might be a question for Chief. How much revenue is generated per medical run for the city?
Definitely a question for the chief.
Probably.
I don't know.
Well, this is another great question. We won't know exact figures. There's no way to know until it becomes till we start running there and we can see what the payer mix is and how that goes. We do know that it's just under a call a day that is at Westminster Village. Those facilities, obviously, with insurances, things like that, those are pretty guaranteed pays. I can let Chief Miller speak if you need a little more specifics on that, but our estimations of this is $100,000 of revenue. Could be a little more. We're pretty confident we're going to be right there. I'd hate to tell you it's going to be 200, 250, because we just don't know. But when those payer mixes come in, but the billing revenue, that's why this one is so beneficial to the fire department.
So ballpark figure, how much revenue is generated from an EMS run?
$100,000
How much per run?
per run.
Yes, sir.
So we're looking at, what's your average then, Wesley?
Based on Wesley Miller, EMS Chief, Muncie Fire. Based on our demographic right now, we're heavy into Medicare, Medicaid due to the poverty level.
Right.
So with those figures, we average about $485 in reimbursement per call.
Right.
So that's how much, and that takes into account when we look at that number, all the non-payments, people that go to collection, people that don't pay their bills. It kind of comes into that one figure and we add it all together. So on average, if we're dispatched, we make $485 a call. Would that number stand true for Westminster? There's a lot of private insurance in there, supplemented by Medicare. So I would see likely that number would be higher per run. But like I said, we wouldn't know until we actually knew the demographics of that particular location.
And so 485, just ballpark figure, is $177,000. That would go, because it's EMS generated, that would go into Fund 104, correct? Correct. All right. So the only revenue that we would receive from that annexation is $177,000, which would go directly to the fire department. Is that a question for you, Mayor?
Let me tell you where the billing revenue goes. But I know there's a parcel of ground out there that is not part of the not-for-profit, I believe, but I don't know what the revenue is for that.
Mayor, is that a question for you, sir? Can you repeat the question, please? I'm just, I guess.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear
you're
it.
fine.
So
I guess I'm just trying to find out what the rationale was behind annexing a not-for-profit parcel of land when the only income that we're seeing is $177,000, which will benefit just one department of our, actually just one part of a department of our city.
Well,
And so, could you explain that rationale, sir?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of our largest and best departments is our fire department.
Absolutely.
They're funded through that 104, which are the EMS runs, which I've been very supportive of. And so that just made sense. The other part, Westminster allowed a lot to be annexed in addition to their building, and so I see additional acreage there. And so
But is that,
that could be other opportunities down the road.
is that parcel also not-for-profit? The
Currently.
Okay. And so have you discussed possibly a pilot, payment in lieu of?
That was my question.
Oh, sorry.
That's what she's gonna ask.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, yeah. So we want to know.
Yeah, have you discussed a payment in lieu of taxes with?
Well, it's not really a.
There was a time where we did have an agreement with them to provide fire services, but that was pulled, that was canceled, and they have discovered that that's not necessarily the best method for them. The current provider is not providing what they want.
Right, so the current isn't, but, I mean, this is similar, to something that we do with Ball State and that kind of thing. I mean, MFD would still get their runs for that, but then there could be a contract where the city could actually be bringing in some other funds. I mean,
Well,
MFD
I
would
don't
still-
want
would
it to
still
look
get
like we're trying to, I don't know exactly what word to use, to influence somebody to do our fire services, especially a nonprofit.
I don't think that's what it is.
I understand, but I want to explain what pilots are for. Generally, there are tax revenues.
Right, this is a different code. That is not a, pilot isn't
Okay,
technically the
I'll
right
let her-
word.
I'll
Sorry,
let her-
sorry,
Go ahead. No,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, pilot, you're right. It's not a pilot, but there is, in the annexation code, there is wording regarding contracts, which is some of the things that, some of these other, and they have before, and that's what they have now with Gaston.
Right.
So is there a reason that the city wouldn't want to go ahead and have a contract so that the MFD is still getting their money, and then the city, we're also getting other income? I mean, Westminster has to be, and I know you don't know exactly what they're saving, but Westminster has to be saving a lot of money on their insurance. I'm sure that's a big reason that they want this. So giving the city payments, not in lieu of taxes, but in addition.
Well, I know
to
there are many
contracts.
reasons that several of the people who are there want to be a part of the city, and it's not just fire protection.
But for us, from our side,
Right.
besides the benefit that that the fire department will get, which they would still get with a contract, what other benefits? And I believe that's
what I was getting
That's
at.
what.
Yeah, I like the opportunity to have a partnership with them, and I view this as an opportunity for future opportunities with what they have in place, what they hope to do in the future. And so some of those things may or may not be for nonprofit, some of them may be for profit.
But there's not been a discussion at this point about payments and a contract with payment instead of annexation.
Well, we've had a number of discussions. I don't know
Has
if
there
the
been a
police,
discussion
if
about
the
that?
fire department has. I know they attempted to try and save that once before, a couple of other times. So it's kind of a situation where, just like you don't know if a new mayor will continue to do a particular service. This particular board wants to have the annexation, and it's good for our city, and it's good for them, and it provides a lot of opportunities in the future. So I understand what you're saying. We asked for details on that, and it just didn't go anywhere.
Could you expound on how it's good for our city? I'm just asking as devil's advocate because, again, we'll be providing all of our services, but we'll be receiving $177,000 just in EMS runs, and that's not guaranteed.
And I think, to follow up on that, I mean, you are the mayor of this city, and you have been for a while. You know how much land we have that is already nonprofit, that we're not getting any property taxes
No,
from.
I understand
And that's what I'm
that
saying. I know Ball State has, and Ball State's not giving us, a lot for that, really, even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In the hospital, there are, so we have these kind of agreements, these kind of contracts. So I don't know why we wouldn't, be interested in, right.
Yep. Well, if they're annexed, there are other opportunities along the lines of income taxes and other things that we don't get if we have those types of agreements. And I think if you factor them all together, you'll see that an annexation is a better route. It's not the only route, but I believe it's a better route.
Obviously, you've worked through that formula. Could you share us the documentation with us? Could you send the formula that you use to show that?
Yeah, we can get that
the
to you.
income tax and.
Yep.
If
Right,
they're,
because at this point, we're not seeing anything except for, like, I think it was $700.
That's correct, because they're not annexed, there is no income tax, that's
No,
correct.
in your fiscal plan.
Oh, the
here.
fiscal plan is
No,
all about
so-
annexation, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Absolutely.
okay.
I'll get that to you.
Thank
I'll send it to you, Mr. McIntosh.
You might as well just
Yep.
send it all the council.
I'll send it to all 9.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Anybody
Anything
else?
else?
Any more questions? I'm good.
Okay.
Please, Jason.
Good evening, guys. Again, Jason Chafin. I just wanted to speak on a couple things with the 177, like my email, guys. I mean, I lowballed that for you guys on purpose. I know it's going to be more than that. It'll probably, and I know it's just 177. I know it's just for one department, but that, and I'll just, I'm not saying I'm not the fiscal person that decides where that money goes, but that's 177 minimum staffing shifts. That's what that pays for. I mean, it could pay for, more than that. I mean, I'm, again, rounding up. That puts Medic 7 in service. 177 M&M shifts will put Medic 7 in service every single day. That's what Local 1348 wants. That's what that would get us. Then, everybody wins. They get Medic 7 every day. That's what that gets the whole city. That's how the people win, is having Medic 7 in staff every day. No one loses by having that. My members who are overworked on Medic 5 and other trucks, they will benefit from that. The members and the people have family in Westminster Villa. I mean, the human factor. Right now, when they have a cardiac arrest, I mean, there are old people there. They're going to die. BLS truck comes from Gaston if they're in service. A Delaware County squad medic might come from downtown Muncie, but odds are, if they are coming, it's Yorktown or Albany. Medic 7 would be to that family member so much quicker. So that's another factor that's not nothing to do about what benefits the city of Muncie necessarily, but what benefits the people that live in Westminster Villas. And that's what we do for a living is save people. And keep people alive. So that's a humongous factor for us. For us guys that do this job. Is we will be to that. We will be at Westminster faster. We don't have an EMS contract to cover you guys, but we do anyway. I mean, our contract is cover you guys for fire. But we want to give you guys EMS coverage. I mean, again, contracts are a contract. Westminster Villas used to give us $40,000, a pilot type payment. New people came, new people left. They quit it. Contracts can come and go. If they're part of us, if they're part of our city, that's forever. That's solid. We don't have to rely on a contract anymore. A new CEO or of a non-for-profit coming in and saying, you know what, we don't need fire protection for Muncie. Well, I don't care about. I'll save that $40,000 for whatever, for my CEO bonus. I mean, contracts come and go. Annexation would last forever, and these are lives. For us, these are lives. I mean, right here, these are lives that we protect. And annexation lasts forever. Contracts come and go.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Have we had these questions answered? Has he answered what formula they used yet?
Have them?
I don't think so.
Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Isabel Sowers. I'm at 5301 West Shoreline Terrace at Heron Point. I do have a question, as you guys were mentioning on the tax revenue. So if Heron Point can generate $300,000, but I heard there's $159 that goes to the city of Muncie. So what happens to the $141? Does that go to the state of Indiana?
It's, well, yeah, we'll let the attorney who can do it without having to look at this. Or
Because if you have, say, if you have, you know, the 177 from Westminster, you've got the 80 from Farmington, you've got the 300 from Heron Point, but then there's a difference on a certain amount that only goes to the city of Muncie.
Yeah.
That extra portion that we could get could save the fire department. We can get the staffing that we really need for all this, so yes, if you
He'll
can,
explain
if you
it to
can
you,
elaborate,
yeah.
thank you.
So, property taxes in Indiana is a topic. So, the Heron Point area generates about $300,000 in property taxes. That will not change pre or post annexation. If you think about it, there's a $300,000, you know, if you think about it, it's like a pie, $300,000 worth of a pie. City of Muncie is not currently a part of that pie. If the city of Muncie annexes that territory, it is now sharing it within that revenue. So it's not as if, you know, all of a sudden it's the everyone else's slice of that pie gets smaller in order to, I guess, accommodate the city of Muncie's share of that $300,000. So it's not like, you know, we're missing half of that pie by Muncie receiving $149,000 of that $300,000. So it's instead of city of Muncie just getting the entire pie, it's everyone else's slice gets smaller in order to accommodate $149,000. So a little property tax 101 in Indiana.
Does that explain it for you? Yeah, it was basically, yeah, the other, and that's what I said. I mean, I can read it off here, I mean, but I just thought
Sure.
maybe you could explain it.
So it's, again, in the fiscal plan, this is outlined on the last page.
But they don't have that.
They don't have it.
Yeah, so Delaware County would, their share would go down to $46,500. Harrison Township would go down $480. Harrison Township Fire would go down $1,830, and so on. So it includes Harrison Township Fire, West Del Schools, Delaware Airport, Muncie Sanitary District, and East Central Solid Waste District. So,
And it already does that. It's just that this will reallocate, if we did this, what comes to the city, rather than taking away from some of those other areas. Is that?
Jason Chafin, again, I want to speak for my wife, but there's no such thing as Gaston's Fire. The Gaston Township pays a set fee for fire protection from Gaston. That set fee will not change based on any of this.
Okay.
Anyone else? There we go.
Brandon Garrett, 2029 South Daly. I'm also a member of the council. Apologize for my attire. I had to come straight from work, so I didn't want to be late. But not really any questions. I just want to say thank you for coming out. A lot of questions got answered. A lot of questions didn't.
Right.
Feel free to contact any one of us from now until the 3rd. And whatever you need, whatever answers, we might not be able to find them right away, but we will find them. We'll get back to you. We'll let you know. Thank you for coming out. But whatever you have answers that you still want answered, let us know. Let all 9 of us know. We will do whatever we can to get you those answers and to make sure that you are heard. Either way it goes through, it doesn't go through. We're not looking at it like that. We're looking at it that when you call, we're trying to get your questions answered. So I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank the committee for coming tonight and having this where they can come out and speak again. So thank all 3 of you for coming up here and doing a great job. But just continue to ask questions. Continue to ask us. We thank you for coming out. And I will say, I can say we do have the best police and fire. I can't leave without saying that. But just give us a call. Thank you for coming out. And please let us answer whatever that you still need answered. So thank you.
Thank you, Council. Anything else on Westminster before I close? In closing, I sent out emails on some questions that I particularly wanted. I sent them out to the mayor. I sent them out to Mr. Craig. And so I'm still wanting some of those answered. And so hopefully I can get some of them answered prior to the council meeting. Yes, because there's 9 of them here, and our time's out right now. And I thought you was going to be coming in with those, just straight off without me having to ask, but we're good. The other thing I wanted to talk on was, I've been born and raised here all my life. And I always notice how much annexation is going on once it goes north and west. My city is starting to deteriorate on the east where I belong. And I just wondered if sometimes if we can come up with the annexations where we trying to bring in and build up the east side. I have to say that. That's just where my heart is, okay? So if there's anything else, more for adjournment. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate y'all.